Hi, Dr. Nicola with Pura Vida, and today I want to talk about making the best health choices for you. This is something that has been coming up very specifically and consistently over the past week or so. So I know it's time to share with the greater audience, because if it's happening for one, it's probably happening for a lot of us. So I was speaking with a patient this morning who's been dealing with some anxiety, some life transitions, some actual chest pain. And so she shared with me that she realized that maybe she's got some adrenal fatigue or could use just some resilience in the nervous system. So she went online and did a whole bunch of research and was kind of overwhelmed, honestly, because some of the top things that consistently were said on podcasts or websites or what have you was to stop drinking coffee, stop drinking alcohol, and stop working out really briskly, like really intensely. And so she was feeling overwhelmed because, having a cup of coffee is not a regular thing for her, but when she wants one, she wants one. Same thing with half a glass of wine and really rigorous working out. It's something that's been with her whole life and that she's found is really, really supportive. And so she was feeling pretty despondent and confused. And what happens when we get all this information, we are like up in our heads, right? And we get really crunchy. It's like there's one right path and there's all these opinions and all these people and experts out there with the answer. And a lot of times this information is contradictory. And so my invitation to her was to take all that information in. It's all a resource. It's all available to you, but filter it through your own experience. And so this is my invitation to you also, which is, let's talk about coffee for a moment. Like if somebody says coffee is bad for you or will create, more of the symptom picture that you're having, but it's something that's a ritual for you. It is something that is comforting. It provides a break in the day, however you're using it, then it's not this black and white thing. And the relief that came over this client of mine this morning when I offered that we don't ever get to put anything in a box. Like, this is the good box, this is the bad box. This is what I shouldn't do, this is what I should do. The mind wants everything in these little boxes, in these cells, and it can feel really contracting and constricting. I'm going to use constricting as a new word. It can just feel tight, and it can just start to feel really, really glitchy in our systems, because now we're in our mind and we're very much drop into that duality of right and wrong. Like there's one path that'll lead to health and then all these other paths that'll lead to more suffering. And so it's so much pressure. And then I was speaking to somebody else later on this morning who's dealing with some autoimmune issues, and there's a lot of question marks around what her rheumatologist said, what her neighbor said, what the internet said, all of these things. And the same invitation of coming back to her knowing. But she brought up a really cool point, which was last week there was an offering on the table for her, and she was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And she said no to the appointment. But this week, she's feeling called to that therapy, to that intervention. And so that's another layer of this that I want to offer you when you are looking for clarity on your path. Oftentimes, I'm just going to switch hands here. Oftentimes we feel like if I said no to that last week, it means I'm saying no all the time. It's once I've made the decision, I can't go back. Otherwise that makes myself wrong for having said no last week. But what I want to tell you is that your body is different today than it was yesterday. It's different than it was a week ago. It's different than it's going to be in a month from now. So as you are navigating the best way to take care of yourself, please, please, please give yourself plenty of room to change your mind or to flow. And so it brings you right back into this now moment. Right now, what would feel nourishing, or does this feel depleting? Right now, what does my body require? Right now, what resources are available for the highest potential of the situation? So we get to come into this now moment, because what was available last week may not be available this week, or vice versa. Maybe new things have opened up. So you really want to stay grounded and allow yourself that fluidity to change your mind, or to not make yourself wrong for having, I think she said, oh, I should have taken the appointment last week, I blew it, or something like that. And I was like, no, it's because it wasn't resonant for you last week and is resonant for you this week. And so just being aware of how we make ourselves wrong or we make somebody else wrong. Well, they did this thing and I tried the same diet and it didn't have the same results. What a bunch of baloney kind of thing. But it's like, well, the person who wrote the book, it worked really well for them. But we were talking as well, like a lot of people who have a very specific point of view end up maybe changing that point of view, and they're not following the same diet or the same exercise routine 5, 10, 15 years later. So we allow ourselves this fluidity, and that brings clarity as well, because that's another thing that can muddle us in our minds, is this idea, well, I already made that decision, and so I don't want to revisit it. I don't want to open that back up as a possibility. But really what we're doing is just closing down our options and maybe missing out on something that could be truly beneficial. So 2 steps that we're talking about to choose your perfect path in supporting your health and wellness and well-being. 1 is to filter any external information through your own experience. If you feel like a cup of coffee is really nourishing and a glass of wine and the pleasure that that brings and that moment of quiet is something that brings you pleasure in this moment, there's nothing wrong with it. So that's 1, filter everything through your own experience. And number 2 is allow yourself to play with fluidity, to change your decision from moment to moment. And never, just because you're saying no right now, doesn't mean that you have to say no in the future. And maybe you will. It doesn't, and there's no right or wrong here, but just allowing yourself to move in the fluidity. And all of these decisions, all of these choice points can be a reminder, a call back home to you to take a breath, bring all of that crunchy energy out of the head, and remember that you carry a divine and innate wisdom that nobody else knows. Yes, there may be people out there who are experts in their field. They've got degrees or certificates or whatever, trainings, and that's wonderful. And they can be a resource on your team, but nobody is ever going to know more about what's right for you than you. So every single opportunity, every single symptom that you're experiencing is an opportunity for you to connect in a deeper way with yourself and start to trust that knowing so that you can move forward in the world from a very aligned place. And that in and of itself will create health. Any choices that feel really stressful are probably not in the direction of health. And so give yourself some time. Same thing. There's another woman I talked to this morning who was navigating, deciding if she wanted to take a pharmaceutical medication or not. And 2 weeks ago, it was an absolute no. And this week, it was a solid maybe, leaning in that direction. So again, allowing ourselves the grace to be different today than we were yesterday. How to simplify that? If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And it doesn't mean that it will still be a no tomorrow, but give yourself some time and space to land. There's no pressure here to make an immediate decision. So let me know how this lands for you. I would love to hear if there's any places where you're feeling stuck or you're feeling like, I just don't know how to proceed. I'm here to assist. And thanks so much for joining. We'll see you next time.